What if I told you that only 2 teams since the year 2000 have led the league in games lost to defensive players to injury and finished with winning records? And what if I told you that it's our favorite team? Hint, hint. All that and more coming up next on Motown Exile. Welcome to this edition of Motown Exile, Detroit sports wherever Exile takes you. I'm Ryan Relkin. Thanks for tuning in. On today's show, we're going to talk about how the Detroit Lions have finished the last 2 seasons as 2 of the most injured defenses in the NFL since the turn of the century. And I'm going to do my best to show you why the training staff was not the reason and what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have done to ensure 2026 is not a three-peat. But first, if you enjoy this content and want more Detroit Lions talk from a Michigan exilee, like me, please hit the like button, smash subscribe, and join the movement. Our goal is 1,000 subscribers by June the 1st. Now back to the Lions. Here's the thing. Let me pull up this slide. Adjusted games lost, the stat that measures how many starter quality games an NFL team loses to injury every year. The 2024 Detroit Lions defense, dead last in the league, 32nd of 32. The 2025 Detroit Lions defense, also 32nd, and it actually got worse. 86.5 adjusted games lost in 2024, 92.7 in 2025. Aaron Schatz crunched the numbers. The 2024 Lions defense is the second most injured defense in the NFL since 2001. The only one worse was the 2021 New York Jets. And get this, both the 2024 and 2025 Lions made the all-time top 12 most injured list, back to back. So Lions fans, reasonably, are we reading the tea leaves and saying somebody has to pay for this? Fire the strength coach, fire Josh Schuler, bring in a new sports science guy, change the practice schedule? Then Fred Warner, all-pro linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers, goes on the Same Brothers podcasts earlier in the offseason and basically says, quote, old Dan is going to come to his senses about live tackling in practice. The whole league is watching. And what did Brad Holmes do? He kept the entire strength and conditioning staff, every single one of them. Schuler, Costanza, Jose, he doubled down. I trust Brad, but to be honest, when I first saw that news drop, even I had a moment. So today on Motown Exile, we're going to break down exactly why he made that call and what the data actually says and where I think we should still push back on the head coach. Let's get into it. Here's the thing nobody on Lions Twitter wants to acknowledge. Pride of Detroit and Justin Rogers both pointed this out, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Of every team in the all-time top 12 most injured defenses since 2001, and the Lions appear on that list twice in back-to-back years, only the Lions finish with the winning record, both times. 2024, 15-2, the most injured defense in 25 years, not named the 2021 Jets. And they went 15-2. 2025, 9-8, a winning record with the 31st worst overall AGL in football. Every other team on that historic injury list bottomed out. The Lions made the playoffs one time and really only missed out by just a little bit the second time. What does that tell you? It tells you the system is working. The depth is real. The next man up coaching is real. Aaron Glenn before he left, Kelvin Shepard now. These coaches are turning backups into starters in real time. And the track record is clear. When guys go down, the Lions still win games. That's not luck. That's a building. I really think this is what Brad Holmes weighs more than anything else. If you fire the strength coach, you're not just firing a guy, you're sending a message that the system is broken. And the system, by the only metric that actually matters, wins and losses, is not broken. It is bending, but it's not breaking. So Brad makes the call that he did. Let me pull up this slide because this one's going to make some of you uncomfortable. Fred Warner's whole argument on that podcast was, stop tackling to the ground in practice. On the surface, it sounds reasonable. The Niners don't tackle in practice. The Lions famously do. Therefore, less tackling equals fewer injuries. Right? Wrong. The San Francisco 49ers, who don't tackle in practice and run one of the most modernized sports science programs in football, were one of the most injured teams in the NFL last year. Christian McCaffrey, soft tissue. Brandon Ayuk, knee. Trent Williams, ankle. The list goes on. They don't bring guys to the ground in practice, and they still got crushed by injuries. The simple narrative, Dan Campbell hits too hard, that's why guys get hurt. falls apart the second you look at it. Dr. Jimmy Lau, a sports physician, analyzed the Lions' camp injuries over the last 2 years and found that of all the major injuries sustained, exactly one could be traced to a live tackling rep, Ennis Rakestraw's shoulder. That's it. The rest, soft tissue issues, hamstrings, calves, non-contact ACLs, things that have very little to do with whether you're bringing a guy to the ground on a Wednesday in August. When Brad Holmes looks at the data, he's not seeing our practice philosophy is killing us. He's seeing soft tissue luck, a brutal schedule, and a defensive scheme that asks edge rushers and defensive backs to play at full speed every snap. That's not a strength coach problem. That's a roster construction and luck problem, and one of those Brad has control over and can fix. The other, he can't. So if Brad Holmes isn't fixing this through the strength staff, how is he fixing it? Because make no mistake, he is fixing it. You just have to know where to look. And the first place you need to look is at a video that I made. Pick number 1, Blake Miller, offensive tackle. I gave it an A. CBS gave Blake Miller a C. And if you want to know why they're wrong, you can go and watch that video, and I'll include it at the end of this one with a link. The reason that I gave it an A is Taylor Decker is 33 years old. He missed time last year, and the Lions just bought themselves a young, healthy, durable insurance policy at left tackle or right tackle. That is a durability move. Look at the UDFA spending. The Lions paid $300,000 guaranteed to an undrafted free agent this offseason. $300K guaranteed. That is top of the market UDFA contract. And the player they targeted profiles as a high floor, high availability rotational piece. The last time Brad spent like this on a UDFA, he hit. He's buying depth. He's buying insurance. Look at free agency and who he kept and who he let walk. The guys who got paid, clean injury histories. The guys who didn't get re-signed, Marcus Davenport, map their availability concerns. Brad Holmes is not paying durability lip service. He is paying for it with guaranteed money. What he's telling us with Mrs. Ford's checkbook, we're not firing the strength coach. We are building a roster that can survive what the strength coach can't prevent. That is what a real fix looks like. It is not loud. It's not Twitter friendly. It won't make Skip Bayless do a segment, but it is the move, and it is going to define the 2026 pivot year. Now, I think I understand what Brad is trying to do, and I trust that. But here's where I have to be honest, because that's what we do here on Motown Exile. No Kool-Aid, no excuses, real analysis. I don't agree with everything about how this team is handling it. Fred Warner is not entirely wrong. Dr. Lau, in that same analysis, said something that struck me. The risk versus reward of live tackling in practice should be regularly revisited. It's worth it for the Lions to reevaluate their philosophy, and I think he's right. Here's my issue. Even if only one major injury in 2 years can be directly traced to a live tackling rep, that's still one major injury that didn't have to happen. Ennis Rakestraw was a possible starter, or he would have been at the end of last season, and the Lions needed him. Yet he missed the entire season. Was bringing a teammate to the ground in August worth losing him for 16 games? Probably not. Dan Campbell's identity is the pit bull mentality. Bite a kneecap, practice the way you play, and I love that. It's a huge reason this team has the culture it has. But there's a version of the pit bull mentality that doesn't require bringing guys to the ground every Wednesday. The Niners don't do it. The Eagles don't do it. The Chiefs don't do it. And all three have played in Super Bowls recently. So my pushback to Dan and Brad is keep the strength staff. They're good. The data backs it up. But the practice philosophy, 2 historically injured seasons in a row, demands at least a conversation about whether the live tackling reps are pulling their weight. Even if the answer is yes, asking the question is the right thing to do, and I'm not sure they're asking it. Okay, here's where I land. 2026 is a pivot year. We've talked about it on this channel a lot. This is the year that the Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell rebuild either takes the next step into legitimate Super Bowl contender territory or it plateaus. What I want you to take away from this video is that the injury problem is not what's going to decide it. The strength coach is not the reason this team will or won't win a Lombardi. Brad Holmes already made his call. He's kept his guys, and he's right to keep them. The data, the players, the winning records all back him up. What will decide the pivot year is whether the roster he's building can survive a potential 3rd straight historically injured season. Past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior, and right now that behavior says these guys are going to get banged up. The question is whether the depth he's just paid for, the Blake Millers and the $300K UDFAs, can hold the line when it happens. I think they can, but that is the actual story, not the strength coach. It'll be interesting to see what happens in OTAs and training camp, whether the practice philosophy quietly shifts, whether Dan Campbell off camera decides to dial back the live tackling even 0.5%. We'll be watching, and we'll talk about it right here on Motown Exile. On that note, so long for now. If you enjoyed today's video on Motown Exile, smash the like button, hit subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.